So let's look into eggplant crown back item duping. That'll be what we do next. By Amogus. So let me go ahead and reset this whole thing with a second player, and I'll explain what I'm getting at with this. We don't need that. We shouldn't need any of that. I'll just leave that running in the background. Alright, so we need a character here. Does anyone want to redeem another character? Rafi is usually player 2 in these demonstrations. Anybody want to redeem a character, or should I just... I mean, technically it counts as still having Rafi, so go ahead and redeem a character if you want. I'm going to swap Rafi to something of my choosing while we do this. And then Rafi is now player 2. This still technically counts as playing as the character. Amogus, alright. Bomb's how you back out of this. Alright, we got Amogus, and we got Rafi. It's the best of every world. Yeah, we don't need to go through the door. Okay, so here's the predicament that you're presented with. Let's just deal with a jetpack because jetpacks are cool. Everybody loves jetpacks. I need to give it to Rafi because Rafi will be player 2. I'm not going to explain the whole back item dupe. There's reading material, not reading, there's video material for this. Xanagear made a simple video of it. I did an 8-hour stream explaining back item dupe, so I will answer like easy questions about back item dupe, but that's not the point of what we're streaming here. If I explained back item dupe every single time I streamed something about it, we would never learn anything except how to do back item dupe. So the gist of it is Rafi needs to have the back item, and player 1 has the eggplant crown. We're trying to dupe the back item for player 1. That's the scenario that we're testing here. You have one question related to back items. If we want to continue the theme, just post it now. I'll put it in the notes if we don't get to it. So anyways, we have a back item, a jetpack, that can be duped by Rafi if I attempt to set up the dupe. Or no, I could... Okay, I'm getting it mixed up. The Amogus here can dupe the back item that Rafi brought into this level. That's the setup that we have. So the predicament that we're in here is we have an eggplant crown, which means the normal strat of just back whipping the backpack isn't going to work correctly anymore because you're just going to kill the person that you're trying to get to dupe it. And I think I have the items on the wrong players. Curious why the cape doesn't... I'll read your whole comment in a second here. Let's see, the problem here is, yeah, Rafi's supposed to have the eggplant crown, not me. Alright, so if Rafi had the eggplant crown, I want to dupe the back item. Rafi cannot back whip. Rafi can only throw eggplants. And that's a problem if you don't have God mode on, because you can get stunned by that eventually. Yes. Give myself more health. Alright, so you can get stunned by that if that is not the button to throw eggplants as Rafi. So this becomes an issue because in order to perform the back item dupe, I need to be in this corner, getting decked in the back of the head by eggplants. So is there a setup that can do this safely is what I'm evaluating here. And there are a couple known setups, but it varies whether or not you have the mitt. So I think this is one of the setups here. If I give myself some more ropes. I do that sometimes. I forget. It's the item rope pile. There we go. Alright, we got a bunch of ropes. Give some to Rafi as well. So I believe this is the setup that people typically use to do this. Let me turn the hitboxes back on so you can see what's going on. So this is one setup that you can do for this, and you don't have to worry about accidentally hitting the player. You would position player 2, or whoever's doing the whipping, in that spot. And if I slow this down and do frame advance, you can see the eggplant there. Let me zoom in more. Enhance. You can kind of see the eggplant right there. It's the hitbox that has the darker blue, and then that's the tile that it's going to hit. So it hits the eggplant first, and it hits the jetpack first, and if the jetpack isn't in position and Rafi were to throw another eggplant, it would hit the wall. So you do not have to worry about killing the person that is attempting to do the dupe with you, is the advantage to this. You just have to climb up a rope a short distance like this. In fact, I think you might be able to do it like this with just a rope on the floor. Alright, so again, if I get back into the corner and Rafi holds up, you can hit the back item, but there's no risk of killing the player. This is the setup you would use to do this without the mitt. The problem is this doesn't work with the mitt. And then from this player's perspective, you want to be like sort of in the middle of the tile. You need a little bit of your hitbox to overlap with the jetpack. And then you're holding down, and let me get the camera zoomed out a bit so you can see what's going on now. And a little more. Okay, yeah, it's still on screen so you can see what's going on, but there's a bit of a zoom. Nah, you know, this looks gross. Let's go back to default. Alright, so I would be attempting to pick up the item and doing this, like the usual business. And Rafi, instead of whipping, is throwing eggplants while doing this. And it's a little hard to time it because there's a delay on when the eggplant gets thrown. I'm trying to do this in real time here. I have to basically press the button exactly like 10 frames after I press the throw input with Rafi. Let me do a sanity check and do a frame advance to make sure it's possible first. But it should be. Alright, so I'm holding down. Rafi's gonna throw an eggplant. I hear the audio. Oh, I see what's happening. I was too far away. That's actually a gotcha to watch out for. Now, let me zoom in. This is important. This is why it wasn't working. The jetpack is not on top of the eggplant when it gets thrown here. This is something you actually have to pay attention to. You see where the eggplant is? On the next frame, this eggplant hits the wall. And I believe the collision with the wall takes priority over the jetpack. And the way this dupe works is you need the jetpack to be on top of the eggplant when it spawns in. So you need the player to be very close to the edge in order to do this. So like maybe over here. Something like this should work. This is, I think, is where you need the player to be in order to perform the dupe. So let me zoom back out and try to do that again in real time. So I would hold down, Rafi would throw the eggplant, and then I would grab it. Assuming this works. I know I saw somebody do this in a run. I know this is possible. Let's do a frame advance. I need my crutch. Alright, Rafi throws. Huh. Hold on a second. Let me think. Am I doing anything stupid here? The jetpack has a lower ID than I do. That should work. It gets hit by the eggplant, and it gets equipped. So it would get hit by the eggplant after it got equipped on my character, because I have the right ID. Because Rafi brought it in. Why isn't this working? Am I doing something wrong here? Let's see. So he throws, it hits, and then that's too late. So if I wait for that frame, it's too late and I cannot pick it up anymore. But if he throws, and I wait for the sound, yeah, that's okay, that's too late. So I wait, if I do it after the frame with the sound, please call me out if I'm doing something stupid here. I feel like this should have worked. I accidentally pressed the wrong button with Rafi. Rafi, get back on the rope. You wouldn't believe how janky my controls are for player 2. It's just like a bunch of buttons in the middle of my keyboard. I feel like this should be working. Does anyone have any ideas about what I'm missing here? Oh, I'm a dumbass. It was working the whole time. The jetpack didn't visually, like, move at all, so I thought I wasn't picking it up. Alright, I'm an idiot. It was working the whole time. So as long as you have the correct overlap. Now I have the back item dupe. Okay, let me get a more coherent demonstration of this so that I can show how this looks for anybody who's actually going to make a clip of this or wants to reference this somewhere. So let me reset the state. Okay. Okay, so if you want to do this dupe, you're going to have a single rope on the ground. The person throwing the eggplant is going to be climbed up to the very top of that rope. And then as the player that is trying to dupe the jetpack, you need to position your hitbox to be very close to the corner of the block, but not past it. So something like this. And this will ensure that when you put the jetpack on, it's overlapping the eggplant on the one frame that the eggplant collision will work. And then it's basically, you just need to equip the jetpack on the same frame that the eggplant is thrown. And there's a slight delay between when you press the throw button and when you actually equip the back item. So I'll attempt to do this in real time. So from my end, what I would do is I would just press equip a couple times, and on Rafi's end, I'm just going to press the whip button. Yep, didn't do it. I guess I should have just equipped it twice. So, unequip. There we go. And that's what that would look like. So this is completely safe. You don't run any risk of hitting the person duping the jetpack as long as their hitbox isn't past the corner of this block. So that's the first safe setup. Now the question is there an easy way to do this with the mitt? And that's the thing that caught somebody up during a speed run that I was watching. It wasn't my stream, it was somebody else's, where they were trying to figure out if there was a way to do this. And it doesn't work the same way with the mitt. And the reason it doesn't work with the mitt is because the mitt is dumb. And you can see here, it doesn't hit the jetpack at all. So if we zoom in a little bit, it's not hitting the jetpack. Now, it might be that Rafi is too low, so let me spawn another rope. Let's move him up a little more. Okay, he's facing left. Yeah, so you can see it happening here. Let me do it with frame advance. He throws it. And it immediately collides with the wall before it evaluates the jetpack. And terrain is always going to generate into the level before this jetpack does. And furthermore, I think terrain collision might take priority over collision 2, which is the thing for like whether or not it hit the jetpack. So there's either no way to do it from this setup, or it would require very contrived circumstances to get it to happen, with like getting a jetpack in a shop and then like reviving a player from a coffin. Or actually, maybe getting like a crushed jetpack or something, but then that wouldn't even work because the players generate after that. This might not be possible at all from this setup. The wall's always going to get hit first. So what we need to do is we need to find a better setup that doesn't suck. And this is where I wasn't able to figure this out in time before the stream ended. You need a crust player. Yeah, that's maybe in randomizer. Yeah, ask Dragu. Maybe Dragu can add crust players to randomizer. Got plenty of crust skins. So my theory is, if you notice what's going on here, the jetpack is taller than the player. So you might be able to safely set this up if you throw the eggplants over the player's head. Like this. Ow, and not from down there. So it's a little hard to get in position, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a good like normalized setup for this that won't result in the player getting beaten. Let's see if we can find this. Okay, that might work. Now, you'll see the obvious issue there was the jetpack, like, is really bouncy. But this eggplant throw, from, like, roughly this height, you can see, like, roughly where Rafi is. His face is, like, maybe a third of the way up that tile. That will hit the jetpack and will not hit the player. In theory, you could do that without the mid as well, but since we have a better setup for doing it without the mid, you might as well just use the corner if you don't have the mitt. But if you do have the mitt, you got to figure something else out. So you can hit the jetpack like this and you don't endanger the other player, but the jetpack gets launched, which is very inconvenient because the player has to go pick it up for every failed attempt. So what I'm wondering is whether this is a better setup. You could get lower, yeah, you could do it from lower because the other player will be crawling. So if you're sitting here and Rafi is throwing eggplants, I think this setup should work right here. This should do it. If I try to do the dupe from standing like basically at the boundary between these two tiles with Rafi on a rope like this. What if I do the funny corner thing, but instead of being on a rope, you throw upward from the ground, standing a bit away? That would probably also work. Maybe you could do this without a rope. Let's do this normalized, kind of normalized setup with a rope, and then let's see if we could find one that doesn't require a rope at all. Maybe you can do it from the floor. That's a good consideration. There may be a no resource setup for this. First, let me see if this works. So the setup for this would be to figure out where the jetpack settles after Rafi hits it. Okay, so it's like right about there. So you could do it from like this spot. Yeah, it may work with mid. That's right. That's good to have ideas like that. I might try that. We'll check it without a rope after this. Let's do with the rope because I already have the setup. So I would be holding down. Let's zoom back out. All right, so I'd be holding down. Rafi is just spamming eggplant, and I'm trying to pick this thing up. Yeah, it's very hard to articulate the inputs because I'm controlling two players at once. Actually, this isn't going to work. I'm pulling... Yeah, this is not going to work. Let me show you why. I think I do need Rafi to be lower, because watch what's happening when I put on the jetpack. Actually, yeah, so that's good, but if I were to do it on the correct frame, he throws the eggplant, and then I equip it, I'm going to pull it away from the eggplant, and the eggplant would skim over the top of the jetpack's hitbox. So that isn't going to work. I think I need to be closer to Rafi, and Rafi needs to be a little bit lower. Alright, so I adjusted Rafi downward ever so slightly. Since the player is crouching down, they are not going to get hit by the eggplants. Let me verify that. Okay, so I will not get hit by the eggplants, but I will if I'm standing up. So that is something to keep in mind. So if you stand in the middle of this tile, I think we still want this hole here because the jetpack's going to bounce otherwise. Yeah, this should work. I think this is actually going to be pretty clean. You might even have like a 2-frame window to do this one, because it's gonna thrust the jetpack back into the eggplant's hitbox, and there might be 2 eggplant hitbox frames where you could do this. So again, let me try to do this natively, and then if I can't get it, I'll do a frame advance. Alright, that wasn't it. Let's see, what's going to happen here? I probably want to let Rafi move it back in front of me and then try again. There we go. Okay. Yep, you can do it like that. So there's a setup that works with the mitt. You would climb up a rope a little bit like that. And if you just kind of position yourself in the middle of this tile and pull the jetpack into the eggplant's hitbox while Rafi is throwing, you'll eventually get it. And normally you could just have your second player just spam eggplants and you mash the button. But since I'm one player, two characters or whatever here, it's harder for me to do it. So I wasn't spamming eggplants. I was trying to time it with both inputs. So the next setup then was the idea of doing this from the ground. So we'll do it from the ground with the mitt. So let's have a look at where the eggplants go. So Rafi would be holding up in this situation and spamming eggplants, and the idea is getting the back edge of the jetpack hit by the trajectory of these eggplants. So this would be like a ropeless setup for this. So I'll go ahead and reset this. So first of all, where is the splash zone? If I'm holding crouch, where can I get hit by Rafi? Okay, that's pretty safe. Let's try the middle of the tile. So again, I'm holding crouch, Rafi is just spamming. Yeah, so middle of the tile with Rafi backed up to kind of around here would definitely work. Let's see, I think this will work. I'm missing some chat messages. I'll catch up on those in a moment. And ideally you would put on the item and then drop it like that. And if Ruffy throws... That's not good though, that's bad, so there's kind of a limit on how far off you can be. Because otherwise the jetpack is going to move away. Okay, so that would be a good setup right there, let's try that. So this should work in theory if I time this correctly. So let Rafi hit it again and then try again. I think I'm just gonna spam with Rafi. This will be a little easier. Let's see, is this gonna work? Yeah, there is a frame where this should work. Maybe having Rafi a little closer would help. Let's move him up just a smidge. Instead of going past... Let me catch up on chat. So let's see, you suggested throwing up from the ground. Yeah, okay, I read that already. When are you doing 2-player telepack low percent eggplant? Yeah, you and AK can fight over that. I will have no part in that. I wish you the best of luck doing that. Okay, so you were thinking throwing the eggplant upward into the corner. So let me have Rafi stand pretty close to the tile and throw eggplants upward into the corner of the tile. Oh, I see what you mean. The problem... That might work. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, you don't want him to shoot them past the corner, right? You want them to break on the corner. Let me try my setup, and then we'll try yours. I know what you're talking about now. So let's see. So again, I'm holding down. Rafi's holding up and spamming. I feel like this should work to begin with. Let's see if that's safer. So I would put it on. Wait, did I had it there. Okay, it is possible. Let me do a frame advance. I had it there, but I confused myself. Yeah, so the way that this would work is Rafi will be spamming eggplants, and then with frame advance, I'm holding down, Rafi is throwing. And then on the frame that I could pull the jetpack in front of the eggplant, probably this frame, I would pick it up. And that would result in the collision that we wanted. And then I have a back item dupe. So that's a setup that would work with the corner there. But the question that has come up now is, what if you had Rafi hitting the corner instead with the eggplants? Like that. So the question is, could you utilize that? This is going to be very tight. I think I know why this might not work. Let's see. So let's throw an eggplant. I wasn't holding up. Or rather, I wasn't holding up when the eggplant got thrown because it's very janky. That right there would be it. It hasn't hit the wall on this frame. It's not going to hit until the next frame. That's the frame where it hit. There was actually a sliver of space in that gap. Let me move Rafi back just a tiny bit so this is easier to see. So you would want to position yourself about halfway between two tiles. And throw the eggplant. This frame right here is the frame where the jetpack would get hit. Oh, that's very close though, because then the eggplant will actually skim the corner. So I moved Rafi a little bit. This is very difficult to set up. You know you have it if you see this frame right here, where the eggplant scoots up a little further and then breaks. Otherwise, I think you risk hitting the player putting on the jetpack. So without frame advance, that would look like this. Yeah, you can tell, even without the hitboxes turned on, if you see this little flicker of the eggplant, like right there at the top, like 2 frames of the eggplant touching the wall, that means you have the setup. You're aiming for it slightly left of the boundary between 2 tiles for the setup that Cloyce is talking about. Alright, so I've reset the jetpack, and then it's a matter of getting the jetpack in this setup right here. Now, where is the jetpack going to settle if I'm spamming Eggplant at this corner? Okay, it settles here. The player can put it back in position. I think this setup might work. So this maybe... What does it do if that corner is open? Okay, this is preferable. This is how you want to do it. You want to find a single corner like this, and you want the other player standing down on the ground like this. And the corner protects you from the Eggplants if they miss. And then I think it's the same thing as before, really. So you would position yourself like just barely like this. I wonder if you need a rope at all, actually. You might not need a rope. I'm going to do this without the mitt, and I think you don't need a rope. You just need to position yourself differently for this, depending on whether or not you have the mitt. So if you were standing like right here, so my character is at no risk of ever getting hit by Eggplants. So you can see here occasionally they hit the wall instead of the jetpack. My character is at no risk, because when I was watching the run where this happened, the player who was trying to dupe the jetpack got killed by the Eggplants eventually, because they couldn't figure out a good setup for it. So that's what we're trying to science here. So let's go ahead and see if I can get this one to work. So I would hold down. Rafi holds up. I'm straddling my keyboard in ways that are physically unhealthy for my hands. This is very difficult to time. I'm not pulling it out of range. Have I ever thought of playing Leisure Suit Larry? I don't think I would enjoy that game. It does not seem like a video game that would suit my fancy. This is very difficult. Let me try with frame advance. I'm wondering if something's wrong here. So let's see. Is the jetpack equipped right now? Okay, it's unequipped. Let's see why I'm having so much trouble with this. I might just be getting bad luck with the timing. Oh no. Oh no, that's bad. I'm hitting the jetpack too early. This might be an issue. The Eggplant hits the jetpack too early for me to put it on. Because what's happening on this frame, let me show what happens. Actually, that's a different setup. Okay, let's see. This is important. Okay, so this is where it ends up if you unequip it from this setup, where you're pretty close but not quite on the edge. I don't think you can do it on that particular frame. I'm pretty sure it will not work. Is my music over? Let me restart it. I don't think you can do it on that particular frame. I think you need to grab it, or you need to let Rafi hit it once and then attempt the grab. So let me just refresh this here real quick. There we go. All right. So if I try it on this frame, let's see what happens. So I'm doing that. Rafi's looking up, and we throw the Eggplant. On the next frame, it's going to hit the jetpack, and if I were to equip the jetpack on that particular frame, I pull the jetpack away from the Eggplant, preventing the collision from happening. So that setup doesn't work. But if Rafi were to deck the jetpack first and move it a little bit, which frame does it get hit on? There is, oh, that is such a tight margin. So on this frame, if I were to equip the jetpack, would that dupe it? This might not be a very good setup because this looks like a really tight margin of positioning for both Rafi and the person here, and it would be very hard to tell in the middle of a run why it wasn't working. So I'm gonna do a one frame grab on this. So it looks like it works. You can do it. It's possible from this setup, but that looks really rough to do that. I wonder if there's any way to normalize that or make that easy to do without a rope. So like again, this is a reasonably close like spot to the edge. Rafi is pretty much at the halfway point. So if I go any further to the left, I think I might hit the jetpack too early. Let's move Rafi just a little. Alright, so if I move him over just a bit more, what goes wrong? Why does this not work? So let's see. So that's where it's going to settle. Like my setup. Yeah, I think I like my setup as well. Skimming it from the top instead of trying to use the corner. It's less precise. Yeah, that's bad. Because if I were to grab it on this same frame, I think I'm going to pull the jetpack away. And it's not going to work anymore. So I'm going to do the same exact throw here. Alright, it gets hit on the next frame. I'm going to grab now. I pulled the jetpack away from the eggplant, and therefore we don't get the dupe. I think I would say go for my setup. This is possible, but being off by even a tiny little bit just makes it not work. It's definitely doable. Like in the case of Rafi, if you wanted to know if you were doing it right, I think you would pretty much back up as much as you could to just hit the corner. And you'd be able to tell that you got that when you saw like the eggplants like doing that weird glitch collision right there. Yeah, that one right there. And then for the other player, the optimal setup is to be right up against the edge here. And you take a risk of getting hit if you can't do a normalized setup, if you don't have like a tile up here to align with. Yeah, the other setup is good because the egg exists for one frame, but with the mitt, it's a little more finicky than that. And you have to worry about stuff like the jetpack getting hit on the wrong frame and because it's not aligned correctly. So let's see, I just set it up again. Rafi is just slightly left of the midpoint, and I am just slightly over the edge of the corner of the block. So again, you let Rafi align the jetpack like this, and let's see what frame we're hitting it on. Yeah, that's bad. I have to be a little further forward to prevent that from happening. So this is extremely finicky, and again, it might be hard to tell why it's not working if you're just doing this in the middle of a run is the issue. Because there could be a lot of issues with this. So for this one here, that still won't work. In fact, that's going to always be like that. Rafi's too far to the left, I think. Yeah, I'm going to say this setup is bad. I don't like this setup. So let's go back to the one that I had before, which was, I think I sit here like this. And then Rafi's goal was to stand roughly there. And then you have, I think, more leniency with this. There's several frames of that you can grab the jetpack with, and then the other player just needs to duck and sit there. And they're never going to get hit. I'm looking to see if there's... Yeah, there's one frame of collision that works here. And there could potentially be two. So I think this is a better setup. There could be 2 frames of collision. If you can align yourself like that, let's see if that's a good setup. Okay, the player doesn't get hit. If you normalize against a wall like this, and then drop down, the player does not get hit by the eggplants if Rafi is standing like basically centered on this tile. That's not quite it. Yeah, Rafi isn't normalized in this situation. If I move him just a smidge forward, will he start hitting the player? No, there's a little bit of lenient. Let's see here. But if I stand up, let's see if he hits me. Oh, interesting. He actually won't hit me even if I'm standing up here. It's not too bad then. So Rafi is a little bit to the left here, and I'm normalized against this corner. I'm pretty sure Rafi will hit me if I bump him all the way up against this. And you wouldn't really be able to do that. I guess if you had a second one here, you could do that. This will definitely hit me. Oh, it won't. Oh my god, it doesn't hit you. Never mind. It corner clips. It actually like passes the player along the corner. Thank you, Collision Engine. Very cool. That's good then. That's a good normalized setup. Both players, if you can get one or both players normalized like this, you might have 2 frames to do this. So again, what you want to do here is you want Rafi to boop the jetpack over like that. And then you want to shove the jetpack into the eggplant's collision as the eggplant is passing by. First try. I think this is the setup that we go with. Because this is, there's a normalized setup for this. It's reasonably safe. This is the setup I would recommend for eggplant, is that right there. I think you get 2 frames to do this. Let me double check that you do in fact get 2 frames. I think you do. So with frame advance, I'm not going to grab the eggplant. Let's see, or I'm not going to grab the jetpack. Let's see where the thing goes. I pressed the throw button for the wrong player. Let me reset the jetpack. All right, so Rafi throws like this. I think that frame and then that frame would work. This one I don't think works because the jetpack sinks down a little bit when you grab it. So yeah, that's a 2-frame window to do the trick, which is very nice. Can I zoop the jetpack into the way? You can, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think of, let's think about how this works. The reason why people don't usually do that, I think, is because it's hard to get the jetpack in the correct spot due to how it bounces off of the wall. The whip doesn't knock it back like the eggplant does. Like you can, this is how you do the dupe with punch traps. I showed this when I originally streamed this. But the ideal scenario is that you pull the jetpack into a knockback collision box, which in this case is the eggplant. Normally it's a whip. You could do it with literally anything that can knock back the jetpack. So punch traps give you a lot of options for like when you can do it. You have like a 3 or 4 frame window potentially to do it, depending on like where in the animation the trap is. I waited for you to sleep. Look, you were sleeping in the middle of the day. I thought my sleep schedule was bad. I got up at 4 p.m. today. I don't want any sass from you, all right? We're both degenerates, and we just have to accept that, Captain. So let's see. But yeah, this looks like a 2-framer, which is really nice then. It's a very rare contrived circumstance, but I mean, we take those. I think you'll see, you actually get feedback. You see the eggplant splash into the jetpack if you got the trick, I think. So I know I didn't get it there. Let's see, we get him to set it up. Didn't get it. Didn't get it. It's still difficult to do. And remember, this is harder to do as with one person controlling both characters here. I think I'm doing it too early. There we go. That should be it. And yep, that's it right there. So you actually get visual feedback from it if you're doing it slowly, but realistically, I think you could just spam and probably get the same result. But you do get feedback if you're not mashing grab. Normally, mashing grab is how you get the feedback on whether or not this worked. That's interesting. I never noticed that. The jetpack flickers behind me for 1 frame when I pick it up, and then goes back to my hands. I've just never noticed that that happens. Alright, our good friend, the normal dude. Is the player trying to pick up the jetpack, be against the wall? What if they're like a different distance? Yeah, I think we're gonna look into that. Okay, this is interesting. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to set this up without a rope for the normal mitt. We didn't do that yet. So we're evaluating the mitt. Then we're going to take away the eggplant crown and the mitt, and we're going to go back to seeing if there's a better whip setup that's like faster to set up by pulling the jetpack into the collision box of the whip instead of the usual strategy, which only gives you one frame to do it. Because if you miss the frame, then the jetpack gets hit by the whip. So let's take away this. There's power up. Okay, that doesn't crash. So Rafi no longer has the mid. He throws normal eggplants. They arc. They're also slower, which may or may not be better depending on how we're doing this. So you can already see a potential danger here, but since the eggplants move slower, it might be easier to have him smack the corner at this point, and maybe we don't need the rope for that. So what you would do is you would stand back until your second player got a setup that was able to hit the corner, the block. And let me try to get a slightly more precise one. You can see the eggplant doing the same thing where it skims up the edge, like just a smidge. There we go. Yeah, you could see when you've got it because you see this like double eggplant frame right here where it moves a shorter distance. And that should be coming through on the stream. I think it's at 1080 60 right now. Unless you're on mobile. Sorry, mobile users, you probably can't see half of what's going on here. So what this would allow you to do, let's see how far back this gets. Won't this setup still suck? Well, let's see. So we get a setup like that. This might not work because of where it gets knocked. Okay, so this is where I would put the jetpack. Yeah, this setup doesn't look good. It sucks for the same reason. I'm looking for no rope setups here. The corner is not looking good, and it's looking like it's not good for the same reason, but also the fact that the jetpack is like really hard to hit. And then if you put it all the way over here and you miss your grab, now you have to move. So going back to this setup here, this is what you would be looking. God, you have to remember so much to do this because the other one needs a 2-tile gap. But without a mitt, you want a 1-tile gap. You could put the jetpack like this. How many frames do you have to do this grab before it hits the corner? That's... yeah, it's a 1-framer. It doesn't look like it's terribly hard to set it up, but it's a 1-framer. Rafi's in the middle of these 2 tiles. You're at no risk of getting hit, and it's a 1-frame window by the look of things. So you want your player to be in like the same general spot. You want to be as close to the edge as possible without actually getting hit by the eggplants. Yeah, you have to throw them upward. I mean, you could back up and not throw them upward, and they would arc. But I think this is still possible. So if I do this with frame advance. It's not that tight. Yeah, that right there. It's 1 frame, but it's not that bad. You can spam it. I would consider this to be a good setup, I think, because you can use the corner for safety and you don't have to worry about accidentally hitting the other player. Whereas the other one has a normalized setup, but you may not be able to use that in every attempt. And yeah, you can see here we got it. So I would say this is a decent setup. This is probably the one I would use. So with the mitt, you need 2 tiles and you need to skim the corner. And you can use a normalized setup for that. Without the mitt, you want 1 tile and you want Rafi to be like kind of this halfway point. And then you want the other player to just be out of the danger zone of getting hit by the eggplant. Which the danger zone might be a little different. Let's see. Like you can see here, I don't get hit, so it's not like insanely precise because as long as it hits the wall on the same frame as the player, it's going to prefer the wall. So like, even though the eggplant very clearly is touching my player hitbox on the last frame, the wall consumed it before it was able to hit my player. What are we sciencing? We did money science earlier, and now we're looking at different like back item duping setups with Eggplant and Mitt. Any other thoughts about Eggplant specifically, or should I move on? Any other setups you could think of that would be better? I would consider this setup to be pretty good for without Mitt. And then again, with the Mitt, the setup was that you want the players to align themselves kind of like this. And then throw, well, I don't have the Mitt right now, but I would throw diagonally past the jetpack, and you get a 2-frame window if you do it like that. But I don't have the Mitt on Rafi, so I can't show that one again right now. I can't think really of anything else to add to this at the moment. If we come up with new ones, we can go back to it. But I mean, this was still interesting. Now we know how to do this with the Mitt and the general rules behind it as well. So Mitt and Eggplant Crown and without Eggplant Crown. We can do both of those. And they're reasonably consistent, and one of them with Mitt is really good. It's like the only time the Mitt is actually useful for something. Okay, so the thought that we had was, now that we're thinking smart about this, is there a better setup for this? This is the OG, the classic, but with a twist. So if I thought I took away Rafi's Eggplant Crown. Is this a fucking flag on the player entity that just, like, is the Eggplant Crown? Did they add a flag to, like, the player that says, like, you have the Eggplant Crown, and taking it away doesn't act? I fucking hate this game so much. This is such a bad video game. Like, just nothing works the way you would think it is. It's literally held together by duct tape and toothpaste. Like, just the fact that it's so finicky to do anything, like, it's so mod or unfriendly, that messed you up for trials. Yeah, that doesn't work apparently. There's a flag somewhere in memory for whether the player has it. I could probably find what it is, but I don't really care right now. So we're just going to go to the next level, get the correct entity IDs, and move on. Is it good toothpaste? Probably not. I mean, I don't know, like, a bad toothpaste brand, but this game is whatever the bad brand is. That's what the toothpaste is. It's just a mess. It's just, like, dried out, and it smells, like, gross, and it smells like mint and bad breath, like, mixed together. It's used toothpaste. Like, somebody brushed their teeth with it, and then they used it to hold the code together for the ball and chain. Like, that's the toothpaste that they used in this game. Not good. Recycled toothpaste. So let's see here. Rafi brought in the jetpack, so he can take it off now. Turn God mode back off. Alright, so what we're articulating here is there a smarter way to do this? The idea would be... Let me show the gist of it. I've explained this before, but the dupe is actually basically just you need the jetpack to be inside the collision box of something that knocks it back, and that's usually a whip like this. So basically I have 10 frames to put this on if I have the jetpack in this setup. The problem is if you miss it, it's hard to set it up again. And that's why I think most people prefer the 1-frame whip. So the 1-frame setup is this. This is the familiar, the OG. You get a player like this slightly past the halfway mark of this block, and you get them back whipping. And then the other player is trying to spam equip the jetpack. So you can see here the whip is just barely missing my hitbox. But if I put the jetpack on, there we go, first try. That's the OG setup. And what I did there was I basically pulled the jetpack into it. Now normally this is what it would look like with the player spam whipping, because if you miss one of your inputs, the jetpack is getting juggled. And now you have to spam your grab while it's on the ground and hope that it's only on the ground for 1 frame. So this would be the setup where the jetpack is getting juggled. You missed the first one. There we go, got it. Now it's easy for me to do it because I'm pressing both buttons on the same frame, whip and grab. But if you miss your input, the jetpack bounces, desync might give you a false positive. It's not ideal when that happens. So the question is there a better setup that you can do? And the thought would be, what if the jetpack was not on top of the whip initially, which is what you were kind of seeing there. And you would do that by getting the player to stand a little bit further away, like maybe against a wall like this, if you could find a pit. You would move the jetpack out of their range so that the back whip can't hit it, but when I put this jetpack on, it will be in the back whip hitbox. And then it's just a matter of timing the 10-frame window and putting on the jetpack, and then you'll get it first try. Like, if you can do a 10-frame input, that's first try. So is this better than the other setup? Let's go over what happens if you miss the input. So Rafi's spamming whip, and I miss my input. Now I have to turn around. Like, Rafi has to stop whipping, or I have to, like, turn around for a second. And I have to take the jetpack off, and then go back to this setup, and then try it again. But again, it's insanely easy to get the 10-frame window. So I think what we have here is we don't have like a better solution. We have one that's good for coordinated players. If both players understand this particular setup, then you could do this. Let's see, that should... I'm thinking, does this setup work normally? And I think it does. Yeah, this setup would work normally. So if I were to whip and grab on this frame... It's so hard to make my fingers do this. Oh god. Was that too early? Oh, that was too early. I'm just thinking, is this the same exact setup? Because you could get people that want to do like either of the two setups. So I'm holding down. Okay, so Rafi whips, and then I grab on the next frame. And yeah, that still works. So you can wedge the player against the wall if there's a wall here. You can wedge the player against it, and that's the normalized setup for this. And you can do the dupe like that, and then if you want to do the advanced dupe, then you specifically put the jetpack against the wall like this, and it's reasonably generous if it's a backwhip hitbox. You put the jetpack against the wall like this, or whatever item you want to dupe, and then you just pay attention to the rhythm of the other player. Like, you might want them to just be very smooth and consistent with their rhythm. And then you just put it on at any point during that whipping animation, and you could get the dupe. So let's see, if I were to... Yeah, there we go, like that. And that's a 10-frame window. That's a timed 10-frame window if your other player is smooth with their whipping timing. So you don't want them mashing, because mashing results in what you see here. This is me, like, mashing whip as fast as I can, and sometimes I miss an input. So you probably want them to do it with a rhythm. Try with a front whip to give the theoretical other player a better timing. How does the front whip help? The front and back whip are both 10 frames. How does the front whip help? Like, this would be the front whip setup instead. They have the wind up. Yeah, I suppose that's fair. You have like an audio cue. So the front whip also works if they tuck themselves into the corner. Front whip is longer, it's worth noting. But if you're in... Actually, oh, that's not good. That's very difficult to get the jetpack in the corner if you're in a pit like this. You can do it, but it's hard to set it up. You have to move over to the middle, I think. Yeah, you can still do it. You have to move back to the middle. Otherwise, what happens is it bounces off of the wall as you unequip it. But if you do it from, like, over here-ish, you can get it against the wall where the whip won't hit it. At which point, you can just do the trick the normal way. So, yeah, that's... I mean, this is cool. This is actually better tech if both players know how to do it like this. The problem is, if the other player doesn't know how to do it like that, they're just gonna whip lock you while you try to fix the setup for the jetpack. So you need both players to know what they're doing, or else you might as well just do the OG strat of just not having any coordination for it, which is this one here. There, I got it. Which again is easier for me to do because I'm controlling both inputs. You do a front or back whip. Any other thoughts for this? I mean, this was an interesting development. We have a slightly better way to do this. I might have to convince people in comms to do it like this. Like, they just have to stop whipping is the only consideration here. If you miss the grab, they need to stop whipping so I can set up the jetpack again. Get it about there. And then they can start spam whipping, and then it's like, it's basically free. Like, you'll get it like every time if you're even remotely competent and you don't have like weird player lag online. Is there any way to get this to be both repeatable and 10-frame version? That would be the ideal setup if we could do that. But it would be difficult. You're not going to be able to do it in a 2-tile pit. As we established, if you're in a 2-tile pit, it reverts to the old setup. You can't get the jetpack to settle in the right spot. So what about a 3-tile pit? Or really just like just any tile pit. Like let's set it up over here. What if you had any tile pit like this and you had the player standing like, let's just start with say the direct center of these two tiles right here. So how does this one look if we do this? Will this do anything? I mean, that's too far away. I'm not sure how we could get this to work. What's the maximum range on this, I think, is the question. What if the players are on different levels? Maybe back whip. Different levels could do something with back whip. With front whip, you're not going to be able to hit the jetpack, so it would have to be a back whip setup. This right here is as far back as you could get. And it results in a... yeah, this isn't going to work. Yeah, this doesn't work, because that's basically as far back as you can get with Rafi still being able to hit the jetpack with a front whip. I could move him like a couple pixels back, and then the jetpack does not settle in a favorable spot if you do that. That's too far. Right there, I think that'll do it. So I think theoretically you would be able to do it here, but it's not a very good setup. Amogus faces left while the jetpack is settling to the left. Then you could pick up and it zoops all the way to his right. With Rafi below? Or I'm still trying to articulate this one. Are you talking about the setup with Rafi below? Because yeah, we're going to try that in a second. I think there's a chance for that to work. That actually might work pretty well. Rafi on same level. Back whipping. Or no, front whipping then. I'm trying to understand what you're talking about here. Being off a ledge puts you a consistent space away. Oh yeah, the ledge whip normalization. We can check that. That might actually put you in a good spot, but... here's the... okay, let me read this again. Amogus faces left while the jetpack is settling to the left. It doesn't settle in the left though. You can't grab it until it's on the floor. Or do you mean like it's already in that position to start with? I have Rafi in the ideal position here for me being wedged into the corner. And this is where the jetpack winds up. And this has the single frame issue. If I miss the grab frame, then the jetpack gets knocked up into the air and I have to try again. I only have one frame to do this because I can't shove the jetpack into the whip, and the jetpack doesn't settle back into the corner out of range of the whip. It settles where you see it now. And I think it always will eventually end up in that spot. Let's see if we can get it like that. Yeah, I think it will always go to that spot eventually. Some combination of equipping and missing your input, it will eventually end up in that spot no matter what you do. Amogus is as far away from the corner as possible while still being able to equip the corner jetpack. So you're saying jetpack here. I'm overlapping it like this. And you're saying Rafi might be able to whip this into the corner if I'm just out of front whip range. Like that right there. So this looks harder to set up. I don't know if this would be better, but it might allow repeats. Okay, this is a reasonably precise setup for, like, doing this with a player in the middle of a run. So if I were to equip it and miss my input and have to do that, that could work. Okay, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, and then I could zoop it again. So that is a retryable setup if you have a larger pit. I don't like the fact that it's hard to set up, but it's something to have in the arsenal. This is a retryable setup. So if you're having trouble with this for whatever reason, you can't time it correctly. Okay, we got it there. You could spam it again. So if you like grabbed it like this, I got it there. He misses it. Oh, whoops, I grabbed it in the wrong frame. Yeah, this works. Okay, we have a repeatable 10 framer. How precise is this? So Rafi, let's see here. So the jetpack is going to eventually end up kind of sitting in the middle of this tile. This might be a little more flexible. Maybe I could stand like here. Rafi could stand back there. I equip it, I miss. Yeah, this isn't too bad. You need 3 tiles of space, and you need roughly this setup for the players. And you would initialize the setup by having the first player stand at like a halfway point between 2 tiles, which is usually pretty easy to do. Second player is pretty much right on top of the middle of a tile. You make sure they can't hit you with the whip, but they'll still get the back of the jetpack, and then it looks like this is a repeatable setup. All right, so yeah, good idea. We have a repeatable setup. It's just a little harder to set it up. But if you miss your input, you can just try it again until you get it. So let's try backwhip now. But yeah, that's a good find. We have a repeatable setup now. So where does it end up if Rafi is backwhipping? Let's try this to start with. Alright, so you get just out of range of backwhipping the player. This is a 1-framer. This is a lousy setup. This is 1 frame. There's no advantage to doing it like this, other than if you don't have a 2-tile gap, you could do it like this. This should be exactly the same as the normal one. So you don't have to look for a 2-tile gap. If you can find a ledge like this, you just set it up like this, and it should work. Yeah, that should work fine. Let me see if I'm just making sure that I can get it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this is, I never actually thought about this one, but we have a setup here that doesn't require a 2-tile gap. You just need a ledge like that. So if you're in like the ice caves or some shit and you cannot find a spot to do this because it's always ice caves, you can do it with this setup here, and it's very low risk. Like nothing bad is going to happen really. But it's not any better than a 1-framer. Yeah, jungle has thorn issues too. You get jungles that are just fucking covered in thorns. There's nowhere to stand. So yeah, here's a good setup. Good to know about this. I'm glad we're researching this now. We're revisiting old tech. Alright, so this is the optimal like positioning for Rafi. This is as close as he can get. Where does this put the jetpack? What I think you would want to do is probably get yourself just out of backwhip range. Yeah, this looks like another 10-framer. You have to time it with a backwhip, but we have another 10-framer. All right, this is very good. I'm glad you guys brought this up. We have another 10-frame setup that you could do with a ledge like this, and I think it's a little bit easier because you can normalize Rafi's setup. So player 1 still has to position themselves, but you would do that by just kind of trying to get out of range of the whip until you're like about there. And then you should be able to do a normalized setup, and you can always pick up the jetpack again if you miss it. So this is a repeatable normalized setup for 10 frames, which is extremely easy to get. All right, this is really cool then. Yeah, that's it. You just stand. That's where I am right now. The between the tiles is kind of your visual aid for it, and Rafi is just tucked against the corner, spamming backwhip. This is really neat then. We have 2 like 2-framers and a new like small ledge like setup for this. All right, so let me recap. Let me see if I could do this in a short enough amount of time to make a clip out of this. This might be neat to post. So before we do anything, let me think about the setup for how you would go about doing this. I'm gonna try to do this all within a minute so that we can get a clip of it. Otherwise, we can just do it in 2 separate ones. So let's see, how would I script this out? So for the first setup, it was Rafi in the middle of the 3rd tile. And a player like this. Let me switch this to a better tile. Okay, these are... Wait, not these. There's one that has... Well, the background for Neo is good. Is there a tile that has a good visible grid increment on it? I feel like there is, and I don't remember which one it is. I mean, Volcana tiles are actually good for that. Let's try that. What is... The hell's the name? Oh, it's floor generic in Volcana is what it is. Let's go to Volcana. Let me make sure Rafi has it. Unless somebody could think of a better one. I'm looking for a tile that has a good visual aid on it. Push blocks? I don't like push blocks. Brick tiles? Bricks are kind of nice. Maybe we could try bricks. Stone? Floor styled stone. Yeah, okay. Yeah, bricks have kind of they kind of have one, but it's a little hard to read it sometimes. I don't want to do push blocks, because push blocks are active floors, and active floors are cursed. I can show the grid, I suppose. I know I can show the grid in Spelunky. I'm just trying to think if there's like a more visually appealing way to do this. And I think we just do this the gross way. There's our grid. You may not like it, but this is what a peak grid looks like. Anybody else hate this too much, or should we just roll with this? Maybe Neo. You hate it? Yeah, me too. Now, this looks a little better. This is fine. Nobody's gonna be upset about this, right? Who would be mad about this? How do you get that tile that is at the top of the laser? Yeah, it really is the... They really did just reuse that sprite, didn't they? No, not quite. It's a little different. It's not like the fucking push blocks in Temple. This is not bad. I think we go with this for the demo, for how to set this up. Alright, so let's see here. For the first setup, I think we'll just do this. I'll just try to set this up with 2 clips. Let's see. Is this one correct? Let me test it before we do anything. Let me also replace the... Do I want to replace this jetpack? I want to get this stupid hitbox to go away. Yeah, you gotta like fix your source, and so you need to download Counter-Strike source to get the purple checkerboard to go away. I think I'm gonna try this with a different back item because I'm tired of the jetpack like having the hitbox of the fucking fire. Or maybe I could turn that off actually. Is that an FX? Hitbox entity types to draw. It's an item for some reason. Okay, I'm gonna do this with a hover pack. Hover pack is easy to see, but it doesn't have that stupid effect on it. So let's go reload the level. As I struggle to figure out what Rafi's controls are. Okay, this is a nice clean area to show this off. Baby. Alright, here's our super ghetto grid setup so that people can kind of see like how this would actually be done on the field. Alright, so Rafi unequips. A miracle I can remember any Rafi's controls. Now let me fix the camera so that I can hold down and it doesn't move anymore. This is looking pretty good. I think we can work with this. I'm trying to get the camera anchored to that spot and it's having none of it. Oh, that's looking beautiful. That's pretty slick. A little down a little further. Yeah, I think this is good. We go with this. Alright, so there's our camera angle for this, to demonstrate how to do this. We're going to send a video containing hover pack, backpack dupe. Is there something weird about the hover pack? That was one of the ones that didn't seem to do anything when you duped it. Did we find something interesting that it does? Okay, so here's a good setup example. The noise-making machine. I'm afraid to ask. Okay. Do I not know about the hover pack dupe player soft lock? Oh, there was some shit with mounts, wasn't there? Yeah, telepacks are cursed when duped, but there was something about mounts, right, where you could get yourself soft locked if you like got knocked off a mount or something with it. No mounts? Or was it just you getting stunned while hovering? I'm gonna have to revisit that. I don't remember. I know I looked into this and it was really bizarre, and then I forgot. Okay, anyways, let's showcase the normalized setups for this. Let's see. Okay, so the first one we're gonna do is the flat terrain one, and then we'll do the back whip normalized setup. Okay, so for flat terrain, let's see. I would take this off, and then have Ruffy whipping. Whip your setting isn't directly related. Okay, whatever it is, I can look at it anyways. Okay, so for a resettable 10 frame window to do back item dupe, you would take the back item off here. Player 1 is straddling these two tiles. Player 2 is roughly centered on this tile. Then player 2 can spam whip, and all player 1 has to do is just put on the back item within the 10 frame window where the front whip is overlapping the spot it's going to get put when you equip it. So it's extremely easy to get the timing for it. And if you miss the input, so do this, if I were to miss the input between the whips, it gets reset back over, and you can just try it again. Alright, that's the first clip. I'll make a note for that. You guys don't have to make a clip of that. I'll make it unless somebody else makes a good one. I might make my own anyways if I have better timing on it. Let's add a marker for that. Okay, then the second one is the back whip setup. So let's see. It was this, I think, and then halfway. Okay, so let's see this. What am I gonna say here? I feel like I'm Xanagear, like preparing things for YouTube videos in the middle of streams. Yeah, and you need the two tiles to do this one, I believe. Because otherwise you get hit by the back whip. So standing in basically the center does that. So let's see. How do I say this? So this is another repeatable 10 frame back item dupe window. So for this setup, you position player 1 between these two tiles, and you tuck player 2 into this corner, facing away from the player with the back item you want to dupe. And then you unequip it. It'll settle there. And then if you want to put it on, you just need to shove it into the back whip hitbox. So you let the player knock it over to the left, and then you have a 10 frame window to equip the item into the hitbox of the back whip. And then you get the dupe. And if you miss the input for it like this, it gets reset over to your side, and you can just try to put it on again and reset as many times as you want. Alright, there's our clips. So we can post that on the science channel, or I'll do it if nobody else gets to it first. Like again, I'll make my own clips if there aren't any good ones or it's like nobody makes one that I like. You owe you both that information, but now we have two repeatable 10 frame windows for this that are very easy to set up. Like extremely simple. This one's with back whipping, and then the other one you could do on flat terrain. And then we have one more setup, which was doing this on a corner, and I'll go ahead and show this anyways. So if you can't find flat terrain to do this on, you can also do it with a corner like this. So for this particular one, let's see. I need to turn off God mode, actually. Shouldn't have had God mode on during those, but I wasn't getting hit anyway, so it should be fine. There we go. Alright, so this, I think, yeah, this was the one framer for if you don't have a 2-tile ledge to stand on. So let's see, how do I say this? Yeah, the 10 frame one is easier. This is if you don't have a spot where you can do it. So this is unfortunately a 1 framer, and I don't know if there's a way to get it. We can look for a better one. But let's see, let me think about what I'm going to say here for this particular clip. Okay, so use position like that. Let's see, where does Rafi need to be? Okay, Rafi needs to be just far out enough to not whip the first player. Okay. This is an alternate setup for a 1-frame resettable back item dupe in case you can't find a good 2-tile ledge to do it on. You want player 1 tucked into the corner like this. You need player 2 a little bit to the right of the halfway point of their tile below you so that their whip hitbox doesn't intersect player 1. And then it's the same like 1-frame window as usual. You try to pick it up on the frame that the back whip hits it. And if you miss it, you want to clip it. And if you get it correctly, you can keep spamming grab and you'll be able to put the item in your hands. Alright, that's another one. Let's see, do we have a 10-frame window with a single tile ledge is the last question. Logical stream lava sound source. Why is that up here? You know, that's probably attached to the camera. I think that moves with the camera. So all I could think of for this is if maybe you could get something like this to work. You would have to be standing like here-ish. You would want to be right up against the edge. I think we have a... Oh, I think we have a 10-framer on a ledge. Oh, let's go. I think this works, because if you miss the grab, you can reset it. We got a 10-framer on a ledge. We didn't even need the clip of the other one. Okay, let me think about my script as I do this. Yeah, we have a 10-framer on one tile. Why did it take us so long to look into this again? We've been doing this like peasants this whole time. And we have way better setups for this, and just nobody like took the time to ask whether there was a better way to do it, including myself. I'm as guilty as everyone else of not like discovering this sooner. We have 10-frame timers for this. You can get this first try if both players know what they're doing, and we have a new setup for it as well. So let me think about my script before I figure out what I'm going to say here for the last clip. You can position Rafi by whipping off that right top brick. This one here, this might not exist. This might just not be here. We may not have a setup for it. Like, this is kind of this is the isolated setup that we're looking at right now. Let me delete all the excess blocks. Like, pretend this is all you had to work with. It's important to have, like, normalized setups for these things. So you don't... Rafi can't set up off of anything. Rafi needs to face to the right in order to do this. So this is what it looks like. You're gonna have to go to sleep before Apple. Alright. I mean... I may not do Apple today. I don't know. How badly do people want to see the Apple? The Apple is a glitched paste bomb that doesn't blow up and can crash your game. I can wait till another stream to do Apple because Remy's the one that like looked into it a bunch, and I kind of don't want to do that without them here. So I can skip Apple. We've got other stuff on the list of science. I think it's only fair. So I'll skip Apple for this particular stream. We're not going to do that one today. I'll do it in a future stream. I'll find something else. I've got a long list of crap that I can do. So anyways, let me see if I can figure out my script for how I'm going to say this one. Yeah, night-night, Remy. As always, thank you for your contributions to the science. So let's see here. This is a resettable 10-frame back item dupe setup if you don't have a 2-tile ledge to stand on. As long as you can have a player standing 1 tile below you. You want player 1 to be very close to the edge of this block, And you want player 2 to basically be halfway teetering off of this one, such that their back whip doesn't hit the first player. And then you have a 10 frame window to put on this back item. So you would get it whipped into this corner, and then during the back whip spam, you have 10 frames to equip the item into the back whip hitbox. And that'll perform the dupe. And if you miss the setup for it, you can unequip it, and it'll get whipped back into a setup where you can do another 10 frame window. I think that's it. Any other thoughts? This is huge. So we have a setup that we can do this on flat ground. We have a setup that we can do with a ledge here. And with a longer ledge, there's also a back whip setup that you can do from like this position, which is the same as this one actually. Yeah, it's the same as this one. You just really, I'm not even gonna make the clip of the other one actually. It's just the same thing except in a tighter space. So you can do the back whip version from a ledge below with as little space to work with as this apparently. As long as you have a wall to knock the back item into, because I think otherwise it gets knocked off the edge. Let's see if it works from this setup. I might redo this take. Yeah, it gets knocked off. So you do need to have a wall in that position in order to do this, but that was in my setup. So wall has to be here. And for the other one that I made, it was like further back, right? Like this, no, I'm gonna upload both because that setup doesn't require there to be a wall here, if I recall correctly. I need my thing back. Yeah, there didn't have to be a wall there. Yeah, so it was, I'm just repeating it for myself. It was like this, I think. Ruffy against the corner. Yeah, this was the other setup. It requires having a wall in this spot here. And you have to be just close enough to grab the back item. Yeah, this was the setup. Okay, so I'm going to upload all of those. It's just, usually you'd be able to find, I think, at least one of these in a level. Yeah, this was it right here. Nice crust gem. Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? Isn't it annoying how they just get grabbed sometimes when you're trying to move stuff? Yeah, this was the other one. We already made a clip of this one. So you do need the wall to bounce the back item. The wall is always important for this because it has to be there to bounce the item. But we have a setup, but we can basically do it in as tight of a space as this here. Like if this is all you can find, you can still do it with this space. So it's a few different toys to play with, I think is the important part. And odds are you're going to be able to find something that'll work with like the 3 of these I think that I'm going to upload. Any other thoughts with this? I can't think of any others that we need. We now have a 10 framer for a resettable 10 frame window for 3 different like permutations of the terrain. We have one for this, and then we have a slightly different one if you can't get like the exact ledge setup that you needed. And then we have one for flat terrain as well. We can always discover more of these, or somebody else might be able to find some of these at some point. Yeah, this right here was the last one. And they all require a wall, is the premise of this. I don't think we're going to find one without a wall, because the jetpack just gets whipped so far away. Or not the jetpack, the back item. I hope I didn't say jetpack in any of those clips. But yeah, the back item gets knocked very far away by all of these. So there's like almost no shot that you're going to get a resettable one on flat terrain, unless we find out a different way to hit the thing. Alright, I'm satisfied with that. Pretty sure I said back item for all of them. Whatever, I'll decide which ones I want to upload or do another take in a future stream. Alright, so we're not going to do Apple out of respect for the player who spent so much time researching it. Is there anything else for like alternate back item setups that we want to look into, or should we move on to the next thing?